All right. How's everybody doing again this Saturday morning? I forgot all about this live. I had it scheduled earlier in the week and I forgot all about it. But I have some awesome mods and they reminded me of it. So, here I am. I want to tell you guys something that before I begin this, you're more than welcome to come in here and discuss your thoughts and your opinions. But just don't be rude to anyone in the chat or anyone on the panel. The mod do know to time you out or even block you if they give you a warning and you continue on, because this is not that kind of chat. We have individuals in here for reasons because they want to be in here, not because they want to argue or fight or debate with anybody. So try to remember that. If you come in here to listen, you come in here to comment. We do understand that there's a lot of individuals that feel that Bryan is innocent. I'm not here to debate whether he's innocent or guilty. But I am going to have a co-host today, and we're going to discuss some things. So without further ado, here we go.
12
What's
gauge.
going on, Jeff H?
How are you? How's my microphone? I was adjusting.
It's terrible. It's low. It's very low.
Is it low? Okay, I thought it might be.
Yeah.
Check 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, well, there's the
That's
edge
a lot
of that.
better.
Let me boost up.
Just a little more.
StreamYard.
Just a little more.
Okay, there's one up to 110. 120. Up a little more. Dang. 140. Check 1, 2.
There you
Check
go.
1, 2.
There you go.
Is that good? Okay.
Let me turn my end up over here.
Turn up your end.
There you go. Hey,
Hi,
Jeff
everybody.
H, how you been? How you been,
Man,
buddy?
good. And I'm even better this morning after your video this morning. That was really what I needed to I'm motivated to do some things I've been thinking about doing, and now I'm ready to do them. And then right as I'm ready to do them, you're just like, hey, you want to go live? It's like, man, now I got to make a choice.
It's like, hey, Jeff, you want to go play? Let's go online. Let's go play online. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't fight very hard, did I?
No, you didn't. But I'm sure that you'll still have the motivation after this is said and done to keep going.
Yep.
So,
hi, Paula. Hi,
mods,
Aquarius.
Please monitor the chat for any kind of discrepancies. Y'all know what's acceptable and what's not. You might give the individual the warning. If they don't heed the warning, then do what you need to do. And that's it. Y'all handle business. Jeff and I are going to present some things. Jeff, I sent you this article the other day, and I don't know if you had a chance to read it, but I thought it was quite interesting.
I didn't, but I know everything, so it's probably all the stuff I know in there already.
Oh, it's stuff. It's stuff that you got from the feds. They've already briefed you on it.
Yeah. The feds have briefed me. I'm good to go. We've had our secret meetings, and we've and then we went driving around in our big black SUVs, all over the place.
Oh wow!
But no, I think I did kind of briefly look at this article. I might just need to have my memory refreshed.
Okay. Well, I was reading this this article is nothing new, by the way. Anybody who's watching this, but it does have some information that people have been getting wrong in other streams, and I'm not here to try to debunk other people, but it does give some avenues on some things that other people have been saying that is not really correct. This was written January 10th, 2023 by Heather Tao Murphy. It says how police actually cracked the Idaho killing case. Investigators used forensic genealogy to zero in on suspect Bryan Kohberger. But they aren't saying so. So I'm going to read this, Jeff, and then you and I can discuss it a little bit, okay?
Sure. Actually, now I do remember reading it. You know why I don't remember actually reading it? Because I would highlight the text, I would put on speech to text, and I would listen to it. I've listened to it. I didn't actually read it.
Oh, okay.
Which is a
Okay.
great little technique for anybody who, I don't know if I've got ADD or ADHD, but when it comes to reading, I can get like three or four sentences into something, and then I'm thinking about doing dishes or do we have dish detergent? It's like, where did my
What
brain go?
happened?
It's a,
It
yeah,
happens. What starts
yeah.
out, it says, around 4 a.m. on November 13th, a masked man broke into a house about a mile from the University of Idaho campus and stabbed four students. Then he walked past a stunned surviving roommate and left. By the time police arrived, Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle were dating, were dead. Early on in the investigation, the Moscow Police Department became interested in a white Hyundai Elantra that surveillance footage had captured near the house that morning. Police compiled lists of white Hyundai Elantras spanning from 2011 to 2016 that were registered at local universities and instructed officers to search for still more. An affidavit released last week revealed that on November 29th, just 2 weeks after the crime, these techniques succeeded in identifying a 2015 Elantra registered to Bryan Koberger, a 28-year-old criminology student at nearby Washington State University. Can you read that, Jeff?
Sure. I was just going to ask you if you wanted me to read some.
Yeah, please do so. I've been
Yeah.
reading. Please do so.
And yet, it would be another month before police arrested Koberger and charged him with the murders. All the while, investigators would keep pleading for more tips about Elantras. That's because it was not Koberger's Elantra that had elevated him to a priority person of interest. Rather, according to a law enforcement source familiar with the investigation with whom I spoke, a key reason police focused on Koberger as a likely suspect has to do with something that is never mentioned in the 18-page affidavit: forensic genealogy. It was only after investigators utilized a technique reliant on genealogy databases to determine who'd left DNA on a tan leather knife sheath that police requested a search warrant for Koberger's phone records, according to this source.
Okay, so
Up and
stop right there.
uh
Let's
huh,
let's focus on that sentence right there, because
yeah,
many times people jump ahead, they jump backward, they hear anything and everything they want to hear. So, what did you just hear from what you just read?
yeah. So it sounds like it was, you know, here goes my ADD is again. I get sometimes so focused on reading well to not like being saturated with what I'm actually reading. But it
Well,
sounds like
basically,
this.
go ahead.
Well, tell me your what you
Well,
got from it first.
basically, to me, it sounded like you read that they utilized the technique relying on genealogy databases to determine who'd left the DNA on on the knife sheath, and they requested a search warrant for Koberger's phone records, according to the source. I mean, so they were looking in the genealogy databases already for the
Yeah.
DNA. Keep
So it
going.
sounds like
Keep
it's almost like it's a race. Which one got to them putting eyeballs on Koberger first? Was it the
right.
genealogy stuff? Was it the vehicle? I still say, and the fact that I notice pro burgers don't ever want to discuss it when I bring it up makes me feel like maybe I'm onto something. But that female officer that pulled Bryan over just 30 days, almost exactly 30 days, if that woman remembered that encounter with a bushy-eyed driver of a white Elantra and all the questions about crosswalks and what was I supposed to do, and just got any kind of a vibe from him, the moment that bolo went out, I'm certain she would be like, I remember white Elantra. That guy was a little weird.
Well, we're
Let
about
me.
to find out exactly what happened and how they got
Okay.
there. Okay, so
Yeah.
keep reading up until that
Okay.
point.
Up until that point in late December, he hadn't stood out among all the other Elantra owners, the source said, something that is reinforced by a close, informed reading of the affidavit. New SUVs, many don't. So I was reading the advertisements too. The precise way forensic genealogy helped investigators zero in on Koberger hasn't been previously reported. This is one of the most high-profile cases in which this relatively new, ethically contentious method has been used so soon after a crime has been committed, and it will likely influence how law enforcement approaches it going forward. Though multiple news outlets, including CNN and ABC News, reported that forensic genealogy helped with the case, none has explained how it was used or why it did not appear in the affidavit.
Because that is one, that question right there has been asked by people over and over and over in chat rooms. I've heard it. Why isn't the genealogy in the PCA? Why, if they used the genealogy, the genealogy, how come it wasn't in the affidavit? So we're about to hear why. Keep going, Jeff, please.
Okay. That how and why matters. For one thing, it shows that a method known mostly for solving cold cases can apply to ones that are still hot. Thus the fire. Is that why you put the fire background in that?
Yeah.
That may increase demand for an emerging field that was already experiencing a boom. The use of forensic genealogy also underlines that the current storyline about how police identified their subject or suspect, which some are suggesting as a model, is missing pivotal details. According to numerous genetic genealogists, the case embodies an emerging trend of leaving out any mention of forensic genealogy from court documents and press conferences. The Idaho affidavit's thoughtful omission of any reference to genealogy, as forensic DNA analyst Tiffany Roy put it, has reignited a heated debate among investigative genealogists, lawyers, detectives, and other forensic experts about the wisdom of this strategy. The people involved in Koberger's arrest won't be weighing in anytime soon. On January 3rd, shortly after Moscow police announced the arrest, a judge in Idaho issued a gag order prohibiting anyone involved in the case from speaking about it in order to encourage a fair trial. I think that's important too. People forget that. They don't think that's the reason, that it's to encourage a fair trial. This order also applies to Koberger's defense team, which did not respond to a request for comment. Koberger is expected to appear in court again on Thursday. Hyundai Elantras are among the best-selling compact cars in America. White is among the most common car colors, and so it is not surprising that within 24 hours of requesting tips about white Hyundai Elantras on its Facebook page on December 7th, the Moscow Police Department had received so many that it had to devise a new system for accepting them. By December 27th, the agency had a list of 22,000 white Elantras. One of the ways investigators whittled down the vehicle's owners was by looking for associated mobile phones that pinged cell towers near the crime scene around the time of the murder. Koberger failed to stand out in that way, according to the affidavit.
Okay, so up until this point, they still had 22,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tips on Elantras. But they continued looking at the phone that pinged closest to the murder scene, and still he failed to stand out, right?
Right, kind of ducked that.
Yeah. So let's keep going.
Okay, so this is a quote from the affidavit, right?
Yeah.
A query of the 8458, don't want to say 8548, get it right. A query of the 8458 phone and these returns did not show the 8458 phone utilizing cellular tower resources in close proximity to the King Road residence between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., Brett Payne, Moscow Police Department's lead investigator, wrote, referring to Koberger's phone.
Okay, so he said it did not show that that phone was utilizing a cell tower in close proximity. So that must mean he's instantly innocent, right?
Yep. Right. Of
Is that
course.
what that means? Just because he said that, that means case over. He's innocent, right?
It must. What else could it mean?
Let's keep going.
um,
Here's the
what?
explanation, Jeff. Here's the explanation.
Here we go. That's what we all want, right? Or most of us want. At least I want an explanation. I don't know why. I don't know why explanations like you're getting close to an explanation. So no, shut him down, block it, block him, make it make sense. He's about to make it make sense. No, block him. What
Here's
this
the
likely
here's the explanation. Go ahead.
here it is. What this likely meant was that there was no immediate reason to prioritize Koberger over other Elantra owners. On December 23rd, 23, I'm sorry, on December 23rd, 3 weeks after Koberger's Elantra first made the list, Payne applied for a search warrant for records of Koberger's phone activity between November 12th and 14th. The results helped convince Payne that Koberger was the Elantra owner he was looking for after all.
There it is. So what did it say? What it likely meant was Koberger was there wasn't an immediate reason to prioritize him over the others. So 3 weeks after Koberger's Elantra made the list, and then Payne applied for a search warrant for the phone activities between November 12th and 14th.
Kind of makes you wonder what kind of like technology they are utilizing with stuff like this. Because I mean, you can edit. I only know things I know. Like you can edit a video a very slow method, or you can use better technology to do the same task quickly and let the computer do a lot of the work. So I mean, 22,000 Elantras put into is it where you can sort it by okay? Now just show me the ones that only have one license plate. Boom, there's a much less a lower number. Show me the ones that are owned by males. Boom, there's a number of less vehicles. Before you know it, show me anything that any of our local officers have shared that they remember.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this female officer pulled him over 30 days ago and talked about they don't have crosswalks in Pennsylvania, or he's never seen them or doesn't know how to use them. Boom, we're onto something.
So in that aspect, there was no mention in that paragraph about the phone being turned off, right? None whatsoever. Right?
Right. Just mentioned that it wasn't coming up in the
Because he was, yeah,
between that time range.
He was an immediate suspect at that point. It had nothing to do with his phone not show or supposedly being turned off or anything like that, in my opinion. Right?
You know what? You know why I feel so smart right now? Because
Why?
typically Unique just said I'm saying what Carlos says. I am in I'm in very good company.
Yeah, so keep reading on, Jeff. Read the next paragraph.
Okay. Yeah, I'll read and then you explain what it means because like I said,
Okay,
I get
sounds
so
good.
focused on my voiceover experiences that I'm trying to read
Sounds
well.
good.
The route of travel of the 84 Okay, this isn't where they reverse the numbers on the phone number, is it? Was it always
No,
8458? Now I'm all confused. Okay. Squirrel.
no, that's the right number.
Okay, gotcha. The route of travel of the 8458 phone during the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022, and the lack of the 8458 phone reporting to AT&T between 2:47 a.m. and 4:48 a.m. is consistent with Koberger attempting to conceal his location during the quadruple homicide that occurred at the King Road residence, he wrote.
Okay, so then he described it. There in the PCAs when he said it's his professional observation that criminals tend to turn their phones off or put it in airplane mode to conceal committing a crime. That's where he said that. Okay.
I tell you what, my wife would love for me to turn my phone off for that long. I, I look at my phone probably every like 5 minutes. Just
Yeah.
always. I can't imagine it being off that long.
I mean, I'm not debating. I'm just going with what it's saying. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to say one thing or the other. I'm just going with what the article is reading, what it stated, nothing else.
Right, right.
So the question is,
So the question is what happened shortly after, I'm sorry. So the question is what happened shortly before Christmas that refocused Payne's attention on this particular Elantra owner? The answer, according to the source familiar with the investigation, is partly that the officer got back the results from a forensic genealogy team. As court documents state, during his exploration of the house, Payne found a leather knife sheath stamped with the Marine Corps eagle containing a single source of male DNA on its button snap. Had their suspect been arrested for or convicted of a felony in one of the states that are aggressive about collecting DNA, officials might have found him by searching a criminal database. But
right,
Koberger's most notable.
that would have been CODIS, since he didn't commit any other crimes or was incarcerated in prison or anything else. His DNA was not in the CODIS database. So that's what that's saying.
Right. It's a benefit for first timers, right?
Yeah.
But just not saying he is, just saying, just for
Right,
others.
right. Keep going.
But Koberger's most notable previous interaction with police occurred this past fall when he applied for an internship to work for the Pullman Police Department. And so, in the end, investigators would turn to an alternative way of identifying DNA, which rose to prominence following the 2018 arrest of Joseph James D'Angelo, a former police officer, in what's widely referred to as the Golden State Killer case. After decades of dead ends, investigators helped triangulate the identity of the mystery man who terrorized California in the 70s and 80s, committing at least 13 murders and many more rapes. By using partial genetic matches to relatives in genealogy databases and the building of an enormous family tree. Since then, law enforcement agencies across the country have used the technique to identify suspects and victims in hundreds of cases. Most of these cases went cold decades ago, but regardless of how long a lab has been storing the DNA, a first step involves processing the DNA in a way that enables an upload to a genealogy database. This is not something police labs can do because genealogists rely on a different, essentially far more informative type of DNA analysis, said Samantha Blatt, a biological anthropologist at Idaho State University who has worked on forensic genealogy cases in Idaho.
So
Idaho State.
do you believe that she's lying? I'm putting you on the spot.
I
She
mean, I
made a
don't.
statement. She made a statement. This is not something police labs can do because genealogists rely on different, essentially far more informative types of DNA analysis. So many people are under the assumption that Moscow Police Department did the investigation on the DNA or the Idaho State Police. Have you not heard that? That they planted DNA, his DNA, or tarnished the investigation based on that?
I
So,
tell you what, it sure seems like if you're going to, like, if I'm going to advertise my business, am I going to put it on a really tiny, tiny sign or am I going to put it on a bigger sign? And it seems like if they're wanting to frame this guy with some DNA, do you put that small of an amount
mhm.
anywhere? I mean, when the opportunity could be to, you could put it, that piece of wall in Maddie's room that was removed, I assume was removed because there was a variety of blood splatter or something, or spatter.
Spatter, yeah.
Yeah, why not?
But
Why not?
but
Why
get
not throw
back
some
to
of his in there?
no, but get back to my question. Do you believe this person right here is a person that works at a university that is a biological anthropologist? Would she have any reason to lie to this publication about what she just said? This is not something police labs can do because
Right.
genealogists rely on different, essentially farm informative types of DNA analysis. So her saying that, that's not me saying that, that's not you saying that, that's her saying that. And she has credentials because she works at the state university. So what gains would she get out of lying about this? You know what I'm saying?
And is she saying that the genealogists have a more informative type of DNA because they're seeking to build like
The
many
family tree.
branches of a family tree? This is just trying to identify a single person, right?
Right.
That's
The
what the law
STR.
enforcement's trying to do.
The STR profile, yes. So keep reading the next paragraph, please.
Okay. Idaho State Police has a contract with Othram, a forensic genealogy company, to conduct genealogy testing according to a July 2021 memo. Othram and Idaho State Police Forensic Services declined to comment. Once the
Okay.
DNA once a DNA profile is ready, it gets uploaded to GED Match or Family Tree DNA, if not both. These are two primary genealogy sites that permit some types of law enforcement searches. The FBI played a role in the forensic genealogy work in the Idaho case, according to the source familiar with the investigation, something several genealogists confirmed would be likely to happen in such a high profile investigation. The FBI declined to comment, and Anthony Dollinger, spokesperson for the Moscow Police Department, wrote, "Due to the gag order issued by our judge, I'm not allowed to discuss the case in any form."
Okay, so it's no secret at this point, right, Jeff? It's no secret at this point that the FBI was involved in a
Right.
role, right? But look at the two databases that they use, GD Match or Family Tree DNA. You're going to see later on in the article that the other DNA sites that people recite over and over and over weren't even used for this DNA uploads. 23andMe and all those other ones that people swear up and down that that's where the genealogy was sent. These are the two that allow law enforcement to do it. So why would you go to one that didn't? Do you get what I'm saying?
Right, right.
Keep going.
You know, something I don't understand sometimes is that, why can't it be discussed? Why can't you can just have a discussion at two subjects at the same time that he could be guilty based on the evidence, and then a separate conversation that, well, did they go about doing it the proper way? Did they break any rules doing it? It seems like those two conversations can go at the same time, but it seems like, no, I want to talk about they didn't do it the right way, so therefore I'm not even looking at whether he's the guy. I don't going to look at that he's possibly a guilty. It's like don't even see it. It's almost as if you're placing yourself just in the limited ability that the jury has. The jury can't go beyond what they hear in the trial. They can only do so. Why put yourself in that as just a person? I mean, I can talk about two separate things at the same time. I can talk about the color of this food my wife that made that's delicious, and I can also talk about the texture and what it tastes like. That's two separate things. I can talk about it at the same time.
Yeah,
Anyway,
but
where were
at
we?
the same, regardless,
Regardless of who is conducting the investigation, genealogists look for partial matches, hoping to find relatives within the third cousin range. They then began the process of building an enormous family tree using a vast array of public records and more traditional detective work to create a short list of people within that tree who could plausibly be the suspect. The fact that Koberger lived 10 miles from the crime scene would have helped him stand out. So too would the fact that he owned a white Elantra.
so that is, I mean, if we're looking at common sense, okay, we're looking at common sense. We're not looking at planting of evidence. We're not looking of police um, failure to do their job or any of this stuff. Because for every bad cop in this investigation, there were some police detectives and investigators that I'm sure had some valuable experience to this case. And they probably broke the case more than the invaluable people that either contaminated evidence or may have not bagged it and tagged it correctly or anything like that. Am I excusing that? No. But you have to understand that with an investigation such as this, they were looking for a white Elantra. It wouldn't have mattered if, they were looking for a white Elantra. They weren't looking for a Kia Sportage. They weren't looking for a Nissan Maxima. This dude drove a white Elantra to try to minimize that he couldn't have been involved because the years were wrong based on a document. It's just picking and choosing what you want, not necessarily understanding the investigative process, whether it was right or wrong. He still drove a white Elantra.
Yeah, and it's not just picking and choosing what you want. I think it's a little bit revealing what you want. The desire when you go down that road is that you want Koberger to be innocent. You want law enforcement to look like fools. You want, what is it, confirmation bias? So you come into the game feeling like all police are corrupt. Therefore, of course, your standpoint and your viewpoint is probably going to be, oh yeah, this is all police. This is all police. No wonder the focus on so many of these other channels is the police. They're not really focusing on this person and so much. I mean, not saying they don't at all, but
To be fair, there are some crooked cops. There are some police officers that don't do their job. There are some
sure.
public officials that pad the books. Hopefully they're caught and, you know, indicted and have to pay the price. But at the same time, there are some good cops. There are some good detectives. There are some good people in law enforcement, the court process, the public, the government, all this. There are some people that actually do their jobs. To jumble everybody in one little basket and say, well, for one bad cop, they're all bad cops because they're going to
Right.
cover for him.
Right, and a parallel example, like you got all those people that are outside the grub truck, and there's a lot of people that believe they're watching a pay-per-view event on their phone, where they're actually watching the four losing their lives, or at least some of them losing their lives. So you're saying that everybody standing out in front of that truck is a bad person, would not say, "Hey, this is wrong. I'm going to go tell somebody." I mean, see something, say something only takes one person. And I think the same
Right.
is true in law enforcement, especially when you've got Idaho law enforcement, you've got Washington, you've got FBI, you've got Pennsylvania, you've got all these law enforcement officers that you're going to find, even if you only had one that cared about their job, that cared because they have teenage daughters similar age and can relate to what the Gonsalves and the Mogans and the Kernodle family might be going through with their daughters. That one person would be speaking up, and they would, at least I would hope, just overturn the whole thing on all the corruptness. But I'm sorry, but I don't see. I
Hold
think
on a
what
second.
happens. Mhm.
Hold on a second, Jeff. We have some questions in chat. We've been so preoccupied in our own little world over here. Um, I've been kind of
Shame,
neglecting the
shame.
chat, and I
I hate that
usually,
when I'm in chat and that happens. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be the
yeah,
one to
I
do
don't
the
mean to
same.
do that. Um, Let me find a question that somebody's asking here. Do you see any right off the bat?
I see
Oh,
Jack
okay.
Johnstone was bringing up Papa
Here's
Rogers.
a question right here. It says, if they didn't do it, the FIGG, the right way or broke rules, then it isn't admissible. This would be the biggest travesty to justice, a discussion that has nothing to do with BK. Well, if is a big word, and I get your point there. I really do. But if is a big word. I mean, if they did do it right, I mean, it works both ways. So if is a big word, you
Yeah, the
know.
door to every rabbit hole has the word "if" on the front of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, if is a big word. So I'm not at the point to really be able to say they did it correctly or they didn't do it correctly. In court, if they messed up and didn't collect the DNA or the IgG material correctly, then I would say that it's going to be suppressed way before trial. So it's not going to be an argument at the trial, but they're still going to have a trial regardless. So, that's what I can say about that. But if it's a big word, and that's why when we're asking questions, when we put these words out there, it's kind of like solidifying, well, this is what I believe. And it's okay to believe as you wish, but if it's a big word, if that makes any sense to you. The icon look-alike of Papa Roger needs to be part of the discussion. Is this proof he was framed or just he's so clumsy? Papa Roger is inside looking out. I do remember inside looking. And you're correct on that statement, okay? But at the same time, we don't really know who Papa Roger um is.
Do you think it's similar in any way? I mean, like I wonder about the guy who shot the CEO, and then he ended up just sitting there in a McDonald's. Do you think there was part of him that was sitting in that McDonald's wanting to be caught and wanting to ride the edge of being caught, maybe for whatever thrill or just the because I mean, there's getting away with it, but then there's getting away with it, and I'm out here in plain sight getting away with it. Maybe there's a thrill, and so could the same kind of thing happen where you're Papa Rogers, and now I've done it? Because I mean, I've heard people share, and I think kind of too. It could be, what if he did this? What if Koberger did this? Got away with it? Got a teaching position, and was standing in a classroom in front of people talking about this unsolved Idaho 4 case. What kind of thrill would that be for someone? I mean, maybe it's very much. I haven't watched all the series, but that show Dexter. Wasn't he like he worked with law enforcement to find criminals,
Yeah.
but he was the criminal
Yeah,
himself?
he
Or
was killing, yeah.
what was the previous question that you put up? It triggered a thought, and then I forgot it when we started talking about Papa Rogers.
Okay, let me answer this question first, Jeff.
Okay.
Or this statement. She said, I am he or she, I can never tell. So don't take any disrespect. I am basing the if on testimony in court from Vargas. Okay. Well, one thing that I want you to know about me, not any other creator, I'm speaking for myself here. In my mind, when it comes to those hearings and all that went on up until this point, there's been a lot of things said in court. Those statements, do they really have any relevance on where we are today regarding the continuum of this trial? Did any of those statements make any difference based on their being said? I didn't listen to the trials that closely, so you can call me ignorant, you can call me misinformed, whatever you want. That's fine with me. But I'm not going to be one that's going to be holding on to every statement that was said in those hearings, because if they had any justification on any type of movement in his being released or still being incarcerated, I believe that it would have done something to move the process one way or the other. We're at the suppression hearing portion. The same thing can hold true. So what we're reading right here is basically the question that people have been asking. How did they get to him? This is an overlay on how they got to him. If we can finish this, then we'll answer any questions. But put a star next to your question, because I can't. I mean, it's all jumbled up right now. I don't have my glasses, so it's all blurry as well. So I'm not making excuses, but please put a star next to your question or your comment so that I can read it, so I can um, answer it, the best way I can. I'm no expert. I'm not going to argue people's beliefs. I mean, I'm not going to argue people's opinions, because some of you are all about the documents, you're all about the court hearings, you're all about that. How am I going to argue about that unless I'm stating that if any of that stuff would have any relevance based on what I'm learning in school, then things would have been totally different at this point.
12, do you think in the you might call it a chess game that they're doing in
Well,
these
thank you. I
hearings.
was calling myself. I was calling myself a. I was saying that I'm not ignorant to the. I'm ignorant to the point because I haven't looked into those as deeply as other people. That's what I was saying. I wasn't saying that you were calling me ignorant. I was just saying that I haven't looked into those as deeply. But as far as I know about the court process, what I've learned is if those would have had any relevance, then there would have been motions to change certain things based on those statements. That's all I'm saying. Okay.
Right,
What are you
right.
going to say, Jeff?
Um, oh, yeah, I was going to ask, do you think, can Anne ask a question like, how did you come to my client? How did you come to, how was it always worded? You just worded it a second ago. How did you, well, you know what I'm trying to say. How did you get to
Okay.
Bryan?
How did they
Can
get to
she,
Bryan?
can she ask that question full well knowing how they got to Bryan? Because it seems like she probably has all the information on how, and she's just
I would
asking
be
the
willing.
question.
Yeah, I would be willing that she has some of this information that we're reading right here.
Yeah, because
This
I
is
don't think we should take every word of hers at face value as gospel. She's gonna. This is a chess game. This is a game, and she's gonna ask questions. Just like if I ask you the question, and you'll know probably what I'm referring to. If I said, "Okay, 12 gauge, I got a question for you." There was no stalking, right? Now, a lot of people are going to understand. I'm just trying to get your opinion on it and you to answer a question in a hearing. But a lot of people are going to hear what I just said and say, "Did you hear what Jeff said? Jeff just revealed that there's no stalking." No, I'm sorry. Me personally, I heard him ask a question trying to get, and I know there's this,
well.
just
That's a
an
good
example.
point.
I don't need
That's
to
a
go
good
too deep into
question.
that.
That's a good question, Jeff, because I was watching um, Chris McDonough and Dr. Gary Bricado the other day, and they were going over that question sequence right there.
Hmm.
And the question actually was asked, was there any stalking of any of the witnesses? And then Bill interrupted at that point. So the witnesses has been deleted from that question. I don't know if it's true or not, but what I'm just repeating what I've heard, just like everybody else on these channels. I'm repeating what they said on their panel as far as what I heard it. It could be wrong. I'm going to go back and fact check it after this. But I heard, was there any stalking of the witnesses?
Mm.
Meaning Dylan and Bethany.
Ah, so
So
not talking about stalking of the murder victims.
the victims, right. And that could
Yeah,
be
see,
wrong, but
I hate things that can be misunderstood or understood multiple ways. But I know one thing, I think that they all realize this is a hearing. This isn't the trial. This what
right.
I wouldn't I mean, I forgive or not forgive, but I can understand pain not knowing every single detail and be ready for a hearing, but he will be at the trial. And I think there's
Right.
also two things that he's not supposed to say, not allowed to say. And I'm sure Anne is going to push that button, try and poke him with it. Kind of like, come on, accidentally spill this thing that we both know. I mean, I personally think Anne is aware of how bad it looks for Bryan and might very well go to bed every night thinking, oh my gosh, I am defending a murderer. Speculation, of
But
course, you know, but
regardless whether she goes to bed doing that, if you look at the new death penalty trial that she's doing the same thing in that trial that she's doing with Brian's trial. The same exact
yeah.
playbook. And that's a death penalty case as well. So for people to say that she's doing this for Brian specifically and specially are misinformed because she's doing the same thing with this other trial. And if you haven't looked at it, you need to go check it out because it's play by play. The defense's job is to cast doubt on everything the prosecution has, the witnesses, the experts, everything to cause reasonable doubt with the jury. And if she causes reasonable doubt, guess what? Her client goes free. She looks like a hero. That's all it
And
is.
do you
There's
know
nothing more.
too?
It's not like she's going to get the national championship trophy or something. You know what I mean?
Right, right. Do you know if in these hearings, are the people that are sitting on the stand, are they allowed to just say whatever they want whenever they want, or can they only respond to the questions they've been asked kind of like they do in the trial. They can't, in a trial, you can't just go off saying, well, I know you asked about A, but let me tell you something important about B. No,
No,
they
it's
gotta
very
stick to it.
specific. If I ask you, hey Jeff, so you say you saw a white Elantra, can you specifically state that you saw it on a surveillance camera? Yes or no? It's open-ended question. Yes or no?
Right.
Yes, I saw it. No, I didn't.
Right,
It's
right.
not
And that's true
long-winded
in the
answer.
hearings as well.
Of course. Why
Okay,
would you
so
want a long-winded answer when you just
right.
ask an open-ended question?
Well, the reason I even brought that up was that like when Anne is asking if there's any video of the vehicle to Payne, what I am hearing her ask is like of the routes that we just discussed, is there any video? And he says no. Now everybody ran with that. It's like, oh my gosh, Payne just admitted to there's no video of the car. I'm hearing it as it's the specific routes that they discussed right then and there that there's no video. And I think Anne asked the question knowing the answer already and knowing what it will look like and knowing the doubt that it will cast when he has to answer the question specifically the way she asked it. He if he could have said, and I don't blame him for not saying, because this is something to wait for trial, but if he said, okay, now we didn't discuss these other possible routes that we believe he took. No, but and of course
Well,
she wouldn't want to hear that
I'm
either.
gonna say one more thing, then I want to get back to the article to finish this, then we'll talk about what we're talking about. Okay?
Okay.
I'm gonna say one more thing. These hearings that we've been watching up to this point, there's no jury in the room. So it doesn't really matter what the witnesses, the
Right,
Payne,
right.
Ray, the other guy with the surveys. It doesn't matter what they answer. It has no basis on innocence or guilt because the jury is not in the courtroom. So it's basically just asking a question. Just asking a question to get clarification on
Right.
what they're looking for in the case. That's it.
So that's another area where procedural rules have to be followed by law enforcement, and
Yeah,
it's all about what can and can't be said in front of the jury, because they're the ones that are going to, in the end, decide. So yeah, that's a very good point.
right. So there's no jury in there, so they could say anything they want. It's not going
Right.
to prove one
But it
way or
still
the
will end
other.
up on a record of some sort, right? Well,
Well, of
how often
course.
do in
Well, you
trial do
can't
they
lie.
bring up?
Well, you can't lie
Yeah.
in court, but it has no procedural basis on the innocence or guilt of the client. That's what I'm trying to say. Without a jury, all these questions are just questions. They're not little clues to decide what the defense has that they're going to prove that Bryan is innocent or guilty at this point, or what the
Well,
prosecution has.
does
Let's
that
get
also
back to this.
mean
Let's get
re,
back to
re,
this article.
one real quick question though, because I'll forget this. I think I've never thought of this thought before. Does that mean that any of these statements in these hearings that we're hanging our hat on can't be used in front of the jury? They can't bring up while the jury's sitting there. Bill Thompson, you remember when you said there was no stalking? They can't do that, can they? They can't use any of that stuff.
I don't believe so. I don't believe unless they ask the specific question, unless she asked, has there been prior testimony relating to the stalking question? And was there an answer that there was no stalking? And whoever she's asking, if they say yes or no, I mean, that's going to be the answer.
I
You
see.
know,
I
it
see.
just, they're trying to discredit the evidence. That's
Or
what
could be
she,
a potential objection, right? Objection. That was in a
well,
hearing.
there
That
could
was
be,
yeah.
or there could be a sustain,
Right.
either way. Because, but all these hearings leading up to this part without a jury in the room are useless. They're procedural hearings. They are not a trial.
Right.
So when
Right.
people get fired up and they say, well, there's a clue right there. So and so said this. So and so said that. Okay, so they said it. It's not going to prove one way or the other whether he goes free today or tomorrow. It has no basis on that, none whatsoever. But we're trying to get where how they got to him, but because that question is asked all the time. Can you please keep reading?
Sure. Where we up? Still even?
Yes.
And I just want to thank Paco for that really nice compliment there. I used to watch Clue, and now I don't anymore. So yes, I am clueless.
Well, thank you, Paco. That's a very nice compliment as well. I hope that you are clueful because, you
Yeah, and
know,
enlighten us.
I mean, honestly, you're entitled to your thoughts. You you really are.
Yep.
And one day we will all see who's clueless and who's not. And if for some reason he is guilty, I hope that you come in here and give me an apology and give Jeff an apology because that would be the responsible adult thing to do. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. We got a puzzle that we're all trying to put together. We don't have the box the puzzle came in. We only have some of the pieces, and it looks like a giraffe to some, and it looks like a whale to others. So
I mean,
they're the
I'm
same color,
clueless.
aren't they? I mean, it's a
I'm
bad example.
clueless. That's fine. That's fine. I'm glad I'm clueless. Hold on a second, Jeff.
Uh huh.
Bobby told him that we told you to call him. Like to hear about him.
Uh oh. DoorDash deliveries here.
All right. Hey Jeff, I got to make a phone
But
call. Can you
sure.
keep reading?
Yeah, yeah. I'll read this paragraph slow.
Okay, thank you.
But seriously, thanks for the Paco. I believe in all opinions being worthy of hearing and sharing. It's how you share them. We have a choice of how we do it in a nice way or not nice way. But I think they should all be welcome. I love to hear it all. Okay, here we go. Still, even after pulling the phone records, the team had no way to be certain Koberger's DNA would match the knife sheath DNA. A genetic genealogy lead is just a hypothesis, after all. A final step, a final step typically involves conducting surveillance on the suspect, and then collecting something they've discarded, such as a cigarette butt or a soda can, extracting DNA from it and comparing it with the crime scene DNA. On December 27th, agents collected trash from outside the Pennsylvania home where Koberger was visiting his parents, according to the affidavit. The Idaho State Lab reported that there was an extremely high probability it contained DNA belonging to the suspect's father. On December 30th, agents arrested Koberger. Paco, that's an interesting. So you believe that the DNA extraction or how they came about it was illegally done. Do you allow yourself to consider whether
All right,
this
bye.
DNA does reveal that truthfully this is the guy? Or do you, like some it seems, don't allow themselves to even go there because of the because they'd rather just kind of hit the brakes and stop on how the DNA was acquired?
Okay, I got about another 30 to 45 minutes, Jeff. I got something I need to do, so let's kind of roll
Okay.
this along. Where are we at?
Sure. I just read that last paragraph there that talked about
Okay.
them being able to normally looking at it like a cigarette butt or something to
Okay.
extract the DNA.
All right, if you'd like to continue on. Soon after
Okay, yeah,
Koberger.
and I should leave probably in about 15. I gotta go get my daughter from work.
Okay, so we could kind of keep this going so we can
Yeah.
close it out.
Soon after Koberger appeared in front of a judge in Idaho, wait, let me zoom in a little bit. Soon after Koberger appeared in front of a judge in Idaho, the court released the affidavit. Some suggested that the absence of any reference to forensic genealogy meant that it had not been utilized after all. But there is another explanation. Forensic genealogy leaders at the FBI and beyond have directed police departments to omit all references to the technique. Numerous people involved in these investigations told me. The only reason it would show up in a probable cause document or search warrant these days is if a police department rejected their guidance. As to whether keeping it out of court documents is a problem, two primary camps have emerged over the past few days. The
Well,
first camp said, Mhm.
there it tells you why they're kept out of the documents, the search warrants.
Right. So it will trigger actions in the investigation, but it's not necessarily something they will have to put in there, right? Is that what it's kind of saying?
Yeah, pretty much.
Because I'm sure they can't put absolutely everything that they did in the investigation. There'd just be not enough paper.
So why would they put everything in the PCA? They put too much in there, in my opinion, just like Detective John said, you know. Um, why would they put every little bit of evidence in the PCA? Why have a trial then? If you're going to put everything for the public in the PCA, there's no need
Right.
for a trial. You've already pretty much convicted the individual publicly before he even had a chance to defend himself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's almost like if I
And
told you all about Star Wars and told you all about Leia being Luke's sister and everything, and then okay, now do you want to go see the movie? It's like no, you
why would I want to go?
you don't give it all away like that.
You know, the prosecution is holding their card. They have a, just like the defense, they have a strategy. Their strategy is to kind of outwit the defense based on the evidence the defense either thinks they have or they don't have. Both sides have the discovery. It's how you use the discovery that's going to determine how the case goes in front of the jury. Who can present the evidence better, either the defense or the prosecution? So it doesn't matter. Honestly, all this stuff that people are focusing on up until the trial, it's who can present the evidence at the point of the trial the best. If the prosecution can present it better than the defense and the jury sees the prosecution side, then the man's going to be guilty. If the defense presents it better than the prosecution, then he's going to be innocent. Plain and simple. So all these arguments, all these name calling, all this other stuff is there's no need for it. You know, all these armchair quarterbacks, no need for it. Believe what you
Right.
want to believe. When the trial gets here and 3 months after, once they're doing the sentencing and, you know, the jury had deliberated, then we'll all know which side presented a better case, the prosecution or the defense. Because I sat in a murder capital trial and I could have swore the defense knocked the closing arguments out of the park. I was ready to say not guilty, even though all the evidence that I had heard, that defense lawyer convinced me that there's no way that it could have been this guy. And then the assistant district attorney got up there and spoke and showed the evidence and basically gave scientific data and all this other stuff that couldn't be rebuked by the defense. And the jury voted the man guilty. So it's who can present the better fight. And all this stuff before the trial is just the procedural aspect of it, nothing more, nothing less. The way people get angry at the defense or at the prosecution or they're hiding this or they're hiding that, you know what? They're supposed to. That's how it works. And if people knew that, they wouldn't have their blood pressures, their feelings, and all these emotions caught up in the mix.
Right, we
This
were
is
talking about the football game Sunday, and you said Washington's going to win, and I said Dallas is going to win. I mean, at what point do we have to hate each other and be furious with each other based on something that it hasn't even happened yet?
well. Let's keep going, Jeff. Let's read.
People don't like to be wrong. The first camp says leaving it out is offensive. The technique relies on members of the public who've let me zoom in a little bit more. The technique relies on members of the public who've chosen to opt in to genealogy databases to allow law enforcement to use their DNA profiles to help identify their relatives. Therefore, the public deserves to know when it is used. Contrary to what many people think, Ancestry and 23andMe don't easily enable law enforcement searches. So GED match and family tree DNA are what we're talking about here. With family tree DNA, you're opted in by default. With GED match, users have to click a box. because it's not in these court documents. It's sorry, because it's not in these court documents. It's difficult. Okay, sorry, I get it now. Because it's not in these court documents, it's difficult to know how many times it's been used or the kinds of cases in which law enforcement applies it.
Yeah. So that tells you right there that 23andMe, Ancestry, and all those others where you opt out on it, the police can't use those. That's breaking the law. That's breaking confidentiality. That's breaking all that. And I get it. People are going to say, well, they do it anyways, and blah, 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 this, that, and the other.
Oh, that was a
Well,
question I had from before, 12 Gauge, regarding his dad. Did they do anything illegally in running this type of genealogy test on his dad? Do we know if his dad ever
not if
opted
those
out or in?
two, not if those two websites allow it, then it's allowed. If they went through those two websites and that's where they got it, because people are assuming that 23andMe was used or Ancestry. Here's two websites that I've never heard of. And when I heard of these, I was like, oh, that makes perfectly sense. Why wouldn't you go where they're not going to go against you using their stuff? I mean, it's common sense. Why would you go to a website and try to do something illegal to try to get to a guy who just killed 4 people in your eyes?
Right.
And then later on, you're found out in court, hey, they did some shady stuff, so we got to let him go under appeal.
Or same kind of question. Same kind of question. If you've got a beard and you look a little like Santa Claus and you're about to retire, do you also want to do it the wrong way and that make this be your one of your last cases, assuming retirement is not far away? Do you really just throw it all away and not do it correctly? I mean, clearly, I don't know if you've ever seen that interview with Bill Thompson when he's walking away from the house, reporters talking to him, and he's being very tight with the information. And he even says, we don't want to do anything that that would jeopardize this case. I mean, the other thing the other thing that his eyes have seen that Ann Taylor's eyes have not seen is, I'm sure, probably the bodies of the victims. So if anybody has a direct connection to what is really going on with this case and what happened,
I'm sure she's seen them as well, Jeff. They both have to have access.
Well, but I think he probably saw them on the scene. I don't know if she saw them like that up close. Maybe not. Maybe I could be wrong about that. I don't know what day he actually went in there. But yeah, she's probably seen photos as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as secretive as people on the internet want it to be. They're, per the law, they each have to see everything that's both sides have seen. It's not as secretive as people think it is.
But I tell you what, doesn't it seem like it ought to be as easy as like, hey, here's a selfie Bryan took of himself at Wawa Way Park at exactly this time. I mean, what are the chances that... I don't know. Maybe he's not like most and aren't taking pictures every so often. My dog looked cute on the couch just a little while ago. I took a picture of it. I'm always snapping pictures. So.
Well, okay, let's get on with the article.
Okay. Why hide it? Asked Greg Hampakian, a biology professor at Boise State University, who is also the director of the Idaho Innocence Project. Having worked on 2 cases in Idaho in which forensic genealogy helped clear 2 people who were wrongfully convicted of murder, he knows firsthand that the foundational science is solid and the technique is valuable. But he's observed that the longer a novel forensic method stays hidden, the more room there is for errors in its application. Let's go get it tested in court and let's tell the public about it, he said. Okay. You need to scroll up just a little bit.
So, to stay hidden, that leaves for more speculation. Go ahead and read that.
All right. So, and maybe I should do this next big paragraph here, and then I should probably get on the road.
Okay.
Roy, the forensic DNA analyst, made similar points in a LinkedIn post that sparked a fiery debate over the weekend. In a follow-up interview, Roy noted that when investigators get a DNA hit in CODIS, the FBI's criminal database, they typically mention it in an affidavit. Getting a partial match in a genealogy database should be similarly included, she said. Early on, prominent forensic genealogists and database managers allowed genetic profiles to be searched in ways that violated customer service agreements. Investigators also lied to relatives of people they found through these databases. She believes that more scrutiny is needed to ensure police don't abuse their power, and she dismisses the argument that keeping the technique out of affidavits protects the privacy of the suspect's family members, because police have already used this information. They are using privacy as a shield and a sword at the same time, she said. I got to do one more paragraph.
Okay.
The second camp says that these people need to chill out because an affidavit of probable cause is supposed to explain why police believe someone is their suspect, not how they arrived at that conclusion. You don't typically include anonymous tips or internet searches in the document. This isn't that different, they insist, given that you would never use a genetic genealogy lead to arrest someone, only to take the next step and collect DNA from them to compare with the crime scene sample. I like that paragraph. That seems to make sense to me. Yeah, we're almost there. Two more little paragraphs. And since an investigative genetic genealogy, or IgG, lead is not direct evidence, there is no reason for the jury to hear about the lead generated by IgG either, said David Gurney, the director of the Investigative Genetic Genealogy Center at Ramapo College, who was also part of a group that is developing standards for investigative genetic genealogists. Several prominent genealogists told me they agreed with him. Some within this second camp agree with the first camp that transparency is important, but affidavits are not the place for it, they say.
So that is pretty cut and dry, right? You know, I'll get back to this later on tonight. I'll probably redo it as well. If you're available, Jeff, you're more than welcome to hop up here.
Sure. I'll probably listen to you in the car. Maybe I can chat while I drive and
put all the other drivers at risk. Later on, because
just kidding.
I got a life to live, and you know, this is not everything I do all the time. My point in reading any of this and having Jeff up here was just mostly to give some kind of insight of a potential way that they could have gotten to Mr. Koberger. It wasn't meant to say that I found a boom, that I found something that somebody else hasn't found, because this article has been written for a long time. And I'm sure people have already discussed it. But as I see in the chat, you know, which is sad to me, is that people cannot present something without rebuttal from people. It would be like you going up to present something at your home, and I bust into your home, and whatever you're presenting, I've already experienced other people present that, and I've heard their presentation, so I'm going to bust in and I'm going to everything that you're trying to present, every beautiful melody, every beautiful guitar riff, every whatever, I'm going to be like, that's crap. I've heard better. Right. You know, so-and-so played it better. That's not even the right note. You know, that's not true. That's not any of that. Blah, horse shit.
And just saying things that are general. Look what Paco said. Payne committed perjury already. He lies.
Everybody in this room sucks. I don't know why they're even trying to be up here. But you know what? That's the beauty of being human. Everybody has their opinion, and everybody has their ability to be who they are. You know, I'm tired of fighting with people. I really am. I'm tired of trying to convince people that this individual could be guilty. or could be innocent. No way did I or you today demonstrate one way or the other, but people still took it in a way that we were trying to present something that was harmful or malicious to this individual. And that was not the intent, one way or the other. But yeah, it doesn't matter what you present, people are going to believe what they want to believe. All I ask of you, you people that came in here that wanted to have that kind of argument, we don't do that here. And there's a reason why. Because there's people in here that have issues with drama, with anxiety, with all kinds of stuff that you don't know that they have. And if you want to be argumentative, you want to fight, you want to argue, you want to present your theory as being factual because you heard it from someone else, that's fine with me. But just stay in those chat rooms that accept it because this is not one of them. You're more than welcome to be here, but I'm not going to have you be arguing with the mods, be arguing and presenting stuff and calling people clueless, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of like 12. Aren't you saying you can think whatever you want to think? You just can't come in here and behave any way that you want to behave. There is some common decency and some just treating each other with
I mean,
respect as we disagree.
of course, we're not always going to agree on things. Like, you know what? If you're overweight and you try to present to me that you're skinny or that you don't have a problem with your health because you're overweight, and I say, well, that's bullshit. You know, heart disease exists. You know, high blood pressure exists. You know, diabetes exists, and you have all those. You're still going to argue with me that you being overweight is not the reason why you have these problems?
Right.
That's an example that I want to give you, and that might be a poor example, but unless you're Brian's family, none of your thoughts or opinions really sway me one way or the other. So I'm not going to be swayed.
You know,
I
the other
believe.
reason too that 12 that I like to hear other people's opinions that are on the other side is it's a two-way street. They may say something that I didn't realize that causes me to change my mind. And they also may be coming into here to listen to some of the, the gentle, uh, the way we treat each other with respect here. They're coming into it's a different vibe, and they might actually hear some stuff themselves they didn't know. So,
I don't know.
change
I
to
don't know.
change a person's mind, mine or anyone else's. Oh, it takes time. It's taken years for me to have the theory I have right now and the beliefs I have right now, but my mind is open to hear other opinions. I think that's why typically unique. I've first time I saw you and Carlos talking, this is awesome. This is two sides at the same time. You having a discussion respectfully. That I loved that. I can still remember where I was going down the road watching the first show I saw. I think that's the way it ought to be. We're just
But
you know
Jeff, that's not my channel. My channel's not geared for people to be up here talking. Today was a presentation on an
right,
article.
right.
My channel is to present information education. It's not to debate. It's not to show that I'm trying to coerce somebody into believing something that I'm presenting. That's not
That's
my
true.
channel.
That's true.
So to be able to come in here and to act like it's one of those channels means that you don't ever watch any of my stuff. And the fact that this said Idaho 4, let's see how they got to Bryan, gave you the insight that, oh, I get to go in here and talk against this individual who's just trying to present something, nothing else.
Right.
But you were wrong. I'm not that type of channel. So I hope that y'all get that mindset across to other people in this the true crime community. You want to argue, you want to have those kind of discussions, go to the channel because this isn't one of them. I'm not going to stand up here and talk and try to convince people that Bryan is innocent or guilty. That's not what I'm doing. I'm trying to educate people on the procedural aspect of court process, investigative process, the psychological process, all of that. And that's why it's not very popular. But I'm not going to quit doing what I'm doing just because people can't get into it. You get what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, and you don't go to a classical music orchestra concert and then go up front and try and start a mosh pit. It's not.
Well,
There,
of course,
that's not.
of course.
It doesn't go together. But yeah, you're right. I think I was speaking more from just a lot of people ask me, why do you go into these chat rooms that they clearly are a different opinion, they hate you, and you. I like the conversations there. But yeah, this
Well,
is.
and that's why it works for you that you go into these chat rooms because you enjoy that, and that's what they offer. That's
Right.
my that's not my platform. My
Until they
platform,
block you. That's what. That's what they
yeah,
offer.
my platform is more on a higher level than just discussing speculation. That's not what I'm about. I'm about something higher level than that. So just so if you watch this on replay, if you're watching right now, no disrespect towards anybody, but please know the audience in which you're going into. The people that are mods for me, they understand it. They get it. They're here every time because they understand what the process is. So if you come in here and you want to be disruptive or you want to argue or you just want to spit facts going against what I'm trying to present, that's fine with me. But you're not making a difference towards your agenda because I'm presenting something a lot deeper than what you're saying. And that's all I got to say about that. Hey, Jeff, let's get out of here, bro. You ready?
Yeah, yeah. I better get running. It
All
was
right,
a great
Maestro.
time, man. Always enjoy the conversation. I enjoy all you folks in chat.
All right. Maestro, cue that music.